Hey Story Seekers, welcome to Seeking Stories, where we unlock the secrets of your favorite books and movies. My name is Ryan, and today we're going to be talking about Chapter 2 of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, The Shadow of the Past. And this is part of a long-running series where we break down a little bit of every single chapter of The Fellowship of the Ring. Nothing too long, no 30, 60-minute videos, just something that's 5 to 10 minutes long or so that really kind of gives you a little bit more of a taste for what's going on in the story, gives you some things to think about, and a way to open up some discussions. So the first thing I want to talk about in this particular video is foreshadowing and the aspect of foreshadowing. Of course, in the last chapter, we had Gandalf leave kind of bent over, and Frodo noticing that he looked more hunched than normal, and Frodo not seeing him for a very long time. And this is a little bit of a different Gandalf that we saw in the beginning of The Hobbit, who was a little bit more lively and kind of whisked Bilbo away on this quest to defeat a dragon, and Gandalf went and did some of his own quests. And of course, Gandalf is a serious character, but he knows kind of how to enjoy himself as well. But we get this sense that something is different. This isn't your Uncle Bilbo's journey, so to speak. To look at the two different stories, first we have Bilbo being rushed out the door in The Hobbit, and then Frodo kind of having a similar circumstance where Gandalf's there, he kind of sets up a little bit of the story, but then he leaves, and Frodo is left there for basically 17 years. So we already get an idea that something deeper and possibly darker is going on than went on in The Hobbit. And we get a little bit of that perspective too by noticing that through Frodo's eyes that elves are leaving Middle-earth, dwarves are hurrying away. There's a sense of sadness and a tragic foreboding in a way that not only is something mysterious going on, but some of the more epic races of Middle-earth are leaving and never to return, and we wonder why that is. So we are getting some foreshadowing dealing into really a weighty chapter that some would argue is mildly exposition heavy, and I will agree that it is. But here's the thing that I think this chapter has going for it. Whereas a lot of exposition dumps in stories are just the author telling the reader information for the reader's sake, this is Gandalf the wizard who has gone on a lengthy journey to discover information, giving it to a character, Frodo, who has no idea any of the information that's being given, but it's essential for him to receive this information in order for him to make kind of a wise decision on what he is to do with his part in the plot. So yes, we are kind of vicariously experiencing all of this through the eyes of the Hobbit Frodo, but this is not an information dump from kind of an omniscient narrator to kind of the unsuspecting audience. This is, again, Gandalf, the character who is seeking out this information. He's barely come across some of it, and it's really been 17 years, goodness sake, 17 years to find this information, and giving it to a character that he knows is going to be very important to the plot and the story. One of the things that I really love about this chapter is the stakes. Now, we talked about stakes in the last part of the chapter, how Frodo needs to have some sort of reason to go on the journey that he's going on. In a lot of scenes like this, where a lot of heavy information is given, you would expect some sort of like ominous background and things like that. But we don't get that in this chapter. We get this instead. A bright fire was on the hearth, but the sun was warm and the wind was in the south. Everything looked fresh, and the new green of spring was shimmering in the fields and on the tips of the trees' fingers. Now, later on, as the chapter goes on, things like heavy silence has fallen into the room, but we have this, heavy dialogue scene juxtaposed against kind of the bright, cheery warmth spring of the Shire, kind of, the idea of new birth in a way. And it's a really interesting juxtaposition because you have these dark, weighty thoughts and then this really peaceful atmosphere. So you have Frodo taking in all this information and realizing that I might have to go on this journey. And then in the background, you have the peace of the Shire. He can literally look out the window and see the thing that he's trying to save. And it's just more motivation, it's more stakes for him to go on his journey. And I think it's a brilliant thing that Tolkien does. He doesn't necessarily set the scene, this particular scene, in the depths of night by a fire. I don't think there's anything wrong with the way that the movie did it, so to speak. I think, that worked fine for the movie. But in this particular case, it's really cool to see really Tolkien just saying, look, the protagonist is going to be able to see the thing he wants to save. And the crazy thing is that Tolkien never says that in this chapter. That's what's going on in Tolkien's mind. This is just me inferring it. So if you infer something else, please let me know. I'd love to discuss this. But in my mind, I'm really just seeing, Frodo, he knows what he must do, and he looks and he can see visually what he's trying to save. And for me, that's super powerful. And then of course in this chapter, we start to come across some of the themes in the story, particularly that of hope. There was something else at work beyond any design of the ringmaker. I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring and not by its maker, in which case you were also meant to have it. And that may be an encouraging thought. Now, of course, for any of you who've seen the movie, you know that this particular line comes up much later in the journey in the Mines of Moria. But in the Tolkien version of the story, which is, to many people, the definitive version of the story, we have this coming up right at the beginning. Tolkien does a really good job of layering in theme after theme in a story and really building upon them. And hope is one of the themes that is just so powerful throughout the story. And we do get this idea right from the beginning. Even though Tolkien never really comes out and says hope in the scene, we know that there are greater powers at work in the story. There are the Valar and Iluvatar, who is the god of this universe. And we get this idea that even though Iluvatar doesn't come down and physically make any changes to this world, how could it be a coincidence that Bilbo just blindly put his hand out and found the ring after Gollum had it for 500 years, Bilbo showing up right at the right time? So I think that's part of what helps Frodo realize that this is his task to do, is that there is a higher power at work here, and that he has the ring at this time and not someone else, and it's up to him to see this through, at least for the time being. And that gives him some hope to realize that he's not alone on this journey. Another theme that comes up in the story is this line: "You have been chosen, and you must therefore use such strength and heart and wits as you have," again said by Gandalf. And I think it's just one of the great parts of this story, and I think the movie does it well when Galadriel says a little bit later on, and this quote may be in the book, I'm not sure, I'll have to check when I read that part, but even the smallest person can change the course of the future. And I think this line that I just read is kind of an iteration of that. It's not this journey where the characters are saying you have to become the best and the biggest and the brightest. Even if you're not right now, you have to become those things to achieve this goal. No, it's Tolkien through Gandalf really saying, as you have heart, as you have wits, as you have strength to do these things. Gandalf knows that Frodo in and of himself does not have the strength to accomplish this whole journey. That's why, goodness, he sends Sam on this journey with him, as we read at the end of this chapter. But also, Gandalf knows that him telling Frodo, oh, you have to become this person that you're not, isn't gonna help Frodo at all right here. Gandalf is fully confident in the fact that Frodo's heart, strength, and wits is enough to get him to the next portion of the journey, and then the next part of the journey, and the next leg of the journey, and so on and so forth. And of course, Gandalf fully expects to help Frodo on this journey for sure, but Gandalf would not have chosen a person that did not have those basic things: strength, heart, and wits. Strength, heart, and wits. We see that so many times in Lord of the Rings, over and over and over again. And then again, those are only a few of the themes we see. We see loyalty, we see friendship, we see hope, we see sacrifice, we see delayed gratification even. So let me know as you read the story what themes you see and how you see it manifest itself in the characters and play out and experiment with different characters. I always love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next part, which is Three's Company.